Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We're live this evening, and I must tell you that please be careful of snow and ice, as I have already been a victim twice of snow and ice, and it's very hard on the body recuperating. So please watch yourself. As I hear the forecast for tomorrow is rain and snow, which is going to produce ice. So please watch yourself, be very careful. And if you have any next door neighbors or anyone in your apartment building, you'd like to knock on their door and see how they're doing or if they need anything, that would be very kindly of you. And please watch yourself driving, but best is to watch yourself walking down stairs outside and not sliding on ice and water. So much for that. Anyway, this is the 28th of February. This is the last day of February. And hope everybody's preparing for the wonderful month of March. I can't believe how quickly this year is already going. We're into the third month of the year, and I'm still back at, well, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever, but so many holidays have coming up. So anyway, this evening's program is indeed a two-part, and I'd like to thank Angela Walker very much because she brings me such wonderful guests. And again, this evening, two wonderful guests from Angela Walker's a little diary of veterans. And the first guest we have on the program is a wonderful artist, unbelievably wonderful artist. And Rick is, Beauvais is a military veteran, 9 years in the Army. And the reason for Chopper is because he was in a helicopter and he was shot down in Vietnam. So we're going to talk about these wonderful pictures that he creates, pardon me, and it's outstanding. Wait until you see them. So without any further ado and my talking, please help me introduce and welcome to the program, Rick Beauvais.
Thank you very much, Bev.
Warm hands, oh, wonderful warm hands. I love warm hands. I don't know. I rub my hands and all this. No. I don't understand. I didn't wear gloves this evening, and it's chilly out, so.
It's getting foggy too.
Yeah. Oh, don't like the fog. We've had no incidents with fog, but just water and ice. That's really bad. So. Tell me, you are military, ex-military.
Ex-military.
Okay. And you got into this painting or portraits? No.
I do strictly landscapes.
Landscapes. How did you get involved with landscapes?
My first duty assignment when I came back from Vietnam, and I had been in the Army 9 years, my first duty assignment was at Fort Carson, Colorado. And it turns out that, you know, you have these stress things going on when you come back from combat that you're not even necessarily aware of. But I did know that I could drive 10 or 15 minutes into the mountains, and I would be in a place that looked like nobody had ever been there before. Oh. It was clean. There was no gunpowder smell. You know, there was no risk in particular. So I felt very, very comfortable up there. And when I do my paintings, I do strictly landscapes now. I don't do anything that has man-made items in it because it ruins that sense of pristineness.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Now, I've done, in the last 15 or so years, I've done about 400 and something paintings that I have given to veterans. I don't have a single one at my house. You would think that I would, but I don't.
Sure.
But when I give these paintings to they're usually combat veterans that have returned from any of the combat zones that America has sent their troops to. And when I give these paintings to them, I see them light up. It's sort of like they get that Me? Why me? Well, I do that because when we came back from Vietnam, our welcome was a lot less than cordial.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I want them to know that
They're
I'm
not
proud of
forgotten.
them,
Yeah,
that I am
yeah.
proud of them. And I've given these paintings to veterans over the years, and I've had people come back to me 10 years later, or even 15 years later, and they would say, you know that painting you gave me? Every time I get stressed out and feel angst and everything, I look at the painting and it relaxes me. Well, that was the same effect
Really?
that I had when I was going to the mountains to begin with. So I took up art as a hobby. Now, I'm colorblind, so it's a little trickier to do some of these paintings than people might think, but I'm able to get something on canvas. And another thing about being up in the mountains and helping me with my PTSD issues was the fact that when I was in the mountains, I could take my thumb and I could go like that and I could cover up a whole city
Sure, with them.
with all of its problems.
Yeah.
And it put things into perspective and gave me a chance to say, well, how big are my problems really if I can cover up a whole city with just my thumb? My problems, and the problems for all veterans, they feel big to us because they're happening to us.
Absolutely.
But by doing that and giving it a sense of perspective, it lowered the anxiety that I was feeling. Now, I still had issues when I came here to Illinois, back to Illinois, I should say, not came here, that I was still having a lot of difficulty with the PTSD. And not being aware of what it was, I was sure I was the only one that had that problem. And then one day I was advised to go out to the VA hospital here in Waukegan and have a discussion with somebody, which I did do, and they said, well, you know, you have all the signs and symptoms, what you don't have is the help.
Yeah.
So they started offering me help by coming into small groups and then larger groups, and it was a chance to find out that, hey, I'm not the only one in this boat. You know, so my problems are solvable. I may never get past or get over the issues that I'm dealing with, because war is a horrible thing, but you can get past it, or you can reach a point where you can deal with it and say, well, today is today, because I can't do anything about yesterday. I can only work on tomorrow.
Tomorrow, sure.
You know?
Yeah, you know, this is remarkable. You have such a keen sense. I don't know whether you gradually have found that out about yourself, but you can lose your inhibitions in some of these portraits or these landscapes I see are beautiful.
Thank you.
Really. And now, are these watercolors? Are these crayon? What are these?
These are all oil paintings. Now, these ones that you have here are obviously just photographs. They're 8x10s of the paintings that I do, because the ones that I do and give to the veterans are usually about 18 by 24 inches. So they're much, much larger.
Big, right.
And I do these in about an hour at the VA, so I can give them while they're still wet to a veteran.
Wow.
And I learned how to do this by watching this gentleman, Bob Ross, on Channel 21, sometimes 369. And I thought, well, here's a guy that can, in 30 minutes, is knocking out these really wonderful paintings. And there was a point where I used to say, well, why would somebody paint when you could take a photograph? Well, the difference is you can paint it without having to be someplace.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to the Rocky Mountains in order to do a painting of the Rockies. I've been real fortunate in my travels. I've seen the Alps. I've seen Mount Fujiyama. I've seen Diamond Head, Denali. I've been to the Tetons in the Rockies, Appalachians. So
well, your memory catches those pictures.
You remember them because the scenery is so magnificent. And the fact that I flew always gave me a high view anyway, because I was always looking down on cities and travel and so forth. So there was a joy that came with being at a higher altitude. I always sought out the high ground.
Is now Dr. Bear, which we should give credit to,
Certainly.
Because he is in charge of this wonderful group and up at Great Lakes. Wonderful gentleman, and he's been on the program, and he is really miraculous in extending his kindness and compassion to veterans, and also shows that the veterans can, produce beautiful items and be a part of society, and don't have to worry about of their troubles and tribulations that they can't handle. There are some veterans that we can't reach, and I implore you, if you know of any veterans that may be suffering from PTSD, please do see if you can put them in contact with Great Lakes or any VA hospital that will be able to handle that situation, because there's a terrible rate of unfortunately suicide that these veterans go through, and we never get them back. And only a pat on the back or a kind smile or a cup of coffee so they can explain their situation would be wonderful. And not to be alone, not to ever be alone. You need to have someone to be able to give you that.
I think most veterans that I've known anyway joined the military right out of high school or within a year or so after being in high school. And they had a sense of who they were at that time. But after you've been in the military for a while and you've done things, you've gone places that you would not normally.
And you see things. Sure.
Absolutely. So you don't have the same contact with who you are, because you are a soldier. You're not John Doe. You're Private John Doe.
Yeah. You belong to someone else.
Right. So you lose touch with who you are. And that's, I think, is one of the biggest problems with being discharged from the military, is that they don't give you an opportunity to rediscover yourself. They just turn you loose and you're back in the world. And that would be fine maybe if your job was something like a Jeep driver, something simple and you never left the United States.
Transportation.
Sure, well, something where you weren't in a life or death situation. Yeah. But having gone through those kinds of situations, then you come back to the States and you kind of resent people because they don't understand what you and other veterans have gone through to give them that ability to be who they are. So we've lost track of who we are. And that's where people like Dr. Bear come in handy, because they find out who you are. They pick at you a little bit until they discover something in you that needs to be reawakened. And I'll say this. Now, Dr. Bear has been responsible for saving thousands of lives. I would have to say thousands.
Easy, I would say.
And we still lose people at a rate of every 14 and a half seconds, a veteran commits suicide. And those are the people who, most part, did not take an opportunity to go seek help. Americans tend to think, oh, I can do it by myself. I don't need help. I'm okay. But you don't see yourself the way others see you. And if somebody tells you you've got a problem with this or that, maybe you should look at that. Now, I've been real fortunate because I had a really, really wonderful mother and father. I can remember times back in the early days where my mom and dad would actually alternate who ate the supper so that me and my brother could eat supper every day. We had a wonderful relationship in our family, but once I left and went away and came back, I still felt as not a part of the family any longer. I felt separate. I felt unworthy, like there was nothing in me worth salvaging. Because
that's pathetic.
But that's what happens to a combat veteran.
We need to get the veterans to talk, not to be quiet, not to clam up. Although there are, I've heard that they're told, don't mention anything about this. You're sworn to secrecy. You're not allowed to talk. But this takes on such an emotional drain on the human being, on the body, on the mind, on the spirit. You have to talk. There are veterans that went through World War II, that went through the concentration camp. They don't talk. They didn't talk.
And they were never given the opportunity to.
And it's terrible what they went through, what they saw, who they liberated, and they were never able, when they came back, to talk about it. They were told by the U.S. government, do not say anything about what happened. And
they don't.
And they don't. And they don't.
Now, I don't want to turn this into a political statement, but there's one thing that I learned in all my travels, because I've been in 7 different countries, and I've been in all 50 states. I've been real fortunate about that. And I have learned in my life, and I could be wrong, because, you know, often we are, but I've learned that there are 4 things that people want. A lot of the chaos in the world is not created by the people. And I say the people of any country.
Yeah.
Okay, but the 4 things that everybody wants is a full belly,
Yeah.
a roof over their head, someone to love, and peace.
Oh, sure.
And if you have those 4 things, you have purpose. And with purpose, you have a reason to exist and to
Sure.
carry on. I try to share a positive attitude with people, but I have my negative days. I refuse to give up on it. I've found the hope and I have the will.
Good.
And I'm going to intend to carry on and do the best I can. And I'm
Continue.
going to encourage others to do the same.
Well, you're upbeat enough that you'll be able to do it. And you know what, Rick, I'm going to tell you, when you help one or more person, you help yourself.
Oh, it
as
always
well.
comes back to you.
So, you know, you're not losing anything to reach out and touch someone's hand and say, can I help you? Is there something you need or something I can do for you? Even just, like I said, a cup of coffee or someone to talk with, or I'll meet you and we'll just walk on the beach or whatever you want to do.
There's some people you'll never reach. And the
That's
only
true.
reason you won't reach them is they are locked behind their own
Yeah.
wall. And since they feel secure behind that wall, they're
not
not
gonna
going
give
to let
up.
anybody else in.
These pictures that you have created, these portraits that you have created, are just outstanding.
Thank
And
you.
you know what you have done for other people? You'll never know that much, because when you hand those paintings out, they are able to be free, and they're able to relax. And I'm telling you, these are marvelous pictures, marvelous
Thank you.
landscapes. You have done such a wonderful thing for so many people. You're almost like a second Dr. Bear, because you have given to
I
them.
wouldn't say that so far.
Well,
but
you have given
I
to them
appreciate it.
something they can see, and it's tangible. They can hold it. Dr. Bear, you have to talk with them and all that. A lot of people don't like to talk, but people that you've given these paintings to, they can talk to the painting.
And what else? I get feedback from that when I give the painting to somebody, and their eyes light up.
Oh, sure.
That also lights me up, and because I am dealing with my own PTSD issues,
Yeah.
I need that surge of energy and that
Reinforcement, sure.
right, sure. So I'm not only telling these people, hey, you are deserving, you are somebody,
Absolutely.
you are worth something.
Absolutely.
But by doing that, what goes around comes around.
Absolutely, good word.
So it feels good inside to me. By making myself feel better, it kind of eases the burden of the PTSD.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job. This is the first I've ever heard of you. Angela has spoken of you many times.
Oh,
And-
shucks.
no, the truth, the truth. And I said, well, Angela, I don't know. Does he paint? Does he, does he make a living at this? Does he, I don't know. And she said, he's wonderful. She said, you'll never believe these pictures when you see them. And he's done these pictures so quickly. And, she said, well, when he comes on the air, he's going to do a picture, and you won't even believe it by the time you're finished with but we are doing a two for one this
So
evening.
we didn't really have the time.
We'll do a part 2 if you want. I'd be so honored if you'd like to come back.
We may consider that.
That would be wonderful, and you could do something, and we'll have the camera show how you do the picture.
Sure. And some of these paintings, by the way, aren't paintings I just give to veterans. I've also donated paintings to be auctioned off, where the funding from those paintings goes to the Wheelchair Olympics.
Oh, this is, yeah, we've got the Wheelchair Olympics, yeah.
So that's another way that I can support the veterans. And people have said to me, well, how much do you want for this painting? Yeah. And I've always had a problem with that. So how do you put a value on something that you know how much time and effort you put into it? You know, is it worth $50 or is it worth $500? Yeah. So when they started auctioning them, I've been averaging per painting around $300 per painting. But I have never, ever charged a nickel to any veteran that I've given a painting to. It's a sense of pride for me to be able to help somebody, because nobody back in the 60s and 70s was available to help us.
Yeah, that's true. It was so hard. You know, it was during that timeline that my husband and I got married, and they just felt that you know, everybody was going to go to Vietnam. That was it. That was it. Very difficult time. And when you guys came back, he was still in the Navy at the time, my husband, and he, you know, everybody was so worried that they were going to be shipped overseas. You know, it just depended on what they were in need of. You know, aircraft or ships at sea or whatever. But you guys had it really rough, really rough.
One thing people don't really know or don't think about is, for every one person that's in combat, there's probably 50 people that are a support of that person to supply the foods, the weapons, the fuels, the housing, everything. So the people who serve are really a small fraction of the number of people who didn't serve in combat. Just because you didn't serve in combat does not mean you didn't serve your nation. There's people out there that have never left this country that have done remarkable things, and will never ever get notice of that.
Well, those are who you call the unsung heroes.
Certainly.
And I mean, we were so worried that Kenny was going to get shipped to Cuba because it was the Bay of Pigs, the big, you know, they didn't know whether the Castro was going to do whatever he was going to do, and you know, will the world ever see peace? Do you think the world will ever see peace?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, because, well, actually the answer is no, because the people don't run the show.
Oh, it's true.
Okay, politicians are the ones that create all the chaos in the world.
It's the government, yeah.
You know, now I admit that it's a smarter thing to do to go to another country and fight them there, instead of bringing them here to fight. But it's because they haven't had the experience in this country of what that's like. It's so difficult to make the average citizen understand what price a soldier pays. A soldier, a sailor, a Marine, airman. You know, my dad was in the Air Force for 23 years. He flew B-17s during World War II. He was shot down once as well. But he never, in all of the years that I lived at home and stuff, he never ever spoke about his experiences. He had taken a lot of 8mm films, and once in a while he would get those out, and we would watch those, and he would narrate to the family.
Yeah, because there was no sound then. The 8mm
absolutely
didn't sound. Yeah.
So he would narrate what the events were, and how they managed to get through a certain situation, and it's really quite harrowing. Now, I flew in helicopters. I wasn't a pilot. I was a crew chief, which meant when the helicopter flies, I fly.
Yep.
You know, that's the way that works. And I've talked to so many infantry people where we would be taking supplies, whether it be fuel, food, something to read. You know, it would be so important to somebody that's out in the field.
Did you carry mail?
No, I never carried mail. No. But we would always try to bring a little something extra to the guy in the field. And I've talked to infantrymen since then, and they'll say, well, we felt you guys who were in the helicopter were so brave and so courageous. And I always told them, you know, when we're flying away, I'm thinking, those guys on the ground are so brave and so courageous.
You're gone.
The thing about flying is if you're in a shoot situation where people are shooting, at least if I'm still flying, I can be out of range in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But the poor guy on the ground, he's never out of range, day or night.
Yeah.
You know, so my sympathies went out to them, and oddly enough, their sympathies went out to me. So I was so surprised by that.
Well, you know, a band of brothers, that's exactly what you guys are, a band of brothers, whether it's infantry or Air Corps or whatever. You know, I don't know if we can do a close-up of any of these, but you can talk. I think we have a little time left. You can tell where they are or which ones they are.
They're not actually aware. These are all things I just made up out of my head.
Oh, how nice.
Some people have brought in photographs and asked me to do a painting. Can you paint this particular picture of Yellowstone or something like that?
That we're going to be looking at. The waterfall, can you recall where that might have been?
No, but I have seen a number of them, in the Rockies especially.
Okay.
That's the painting there that I did, what they call monochromatic. It's just one color. I used brown in that case, but it does have tints of blue and maybe maybe a little bit of green to it.
Nice.
That's my knee.
That's your...
That's an escarpment. You don't
see. Look at that.
And by the way, the people that I've given this to, like I say, they come back to me later and they say, it's wonderful. How can you do this when you're colorblind? Well, I placed the colors on a palette in a certain order, and I know the order, and that's what helps me get these accomplished.
Cheat, okay.
Well, you got a lot of glare on that one, but that's too bad because that's actually a very nice painting.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And of course that one too, nice little sunset painting.
That. That's stunning. That's stunning. These are so relaxing, so you know, your mind just takes you away. It's like sitting on a hilltop and just looking at the rolling hills, a green grass, or maybe you know, birds flying in the air. So relaxing. The water always is relaxing.
Sure.
Even if it's thunder rolling, coming down a waterfall, but it's beautiful.
Who doesn't like to go to a park? You know, someplace where nature rules, which is why I don't put man-made items in my paintings.
Just beautiful.
Because nature is so much more wonderful than mankind's creations.
Outstanding, outstanding. We need to have you back, Rick. We need to have
I'd be proud to come back.
That's so nice of you. And if you have it, do you have any other pictures or paintings that you're in the mood to do or whatever?
A lot of times when I start a painting, I have no idea what's going to be on it. Having said that, there's a lot of times where I have in my mind what I want. And if I do the painting and it's not what I originally thought it was going to be, I feel like it was a failure.
No.
Now, when I first started doing this, I had done like 10 or 12 paintings that I didn't like, okay, because I was new at this, okay. So I threw those when they were dry. I had them in the house for a while. I threw them in a dumpster, and a friend of mine came by when I was doing painting number 15, and he says, "Wow, that's pretty good," and which again I didn't think so. I says, "Well, if you think this one's nice, there's about 10 more out in the dumpster." And he ran out to the dumpster and he grabbed those. Now he has all 10 of those paintings around his house, and he brags about them consistently.
Well, it's something to brag about. We need you back, because first of all, we have a second half of a program to do, but we would like you to come back very much and do a part 2 of this. And with the thanks of Angela Walker, I thank her so much. Please do come back, and we have to tell our viewers that Rick can be seen here, and if you would like any of his pictures, they can contact you or contact us, and we'll put them in touch, and we'll see if you can do a foundation for them.
And before I go, I would like to reiterate that if you have a PTSD issue, please call the North Chicago VA. It's now the Lovell Federal Hospital.
Yeah.
Ask for Dr. John Baer.
Oh, sure.
And see if he can't find a spot for you, because he will help you out. He is so beneficial.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on.
And I thank you.
God bless you.
Are my hands still warm?
Your hands are wonderful warm. Take care. We have returned, and we have as our second guest Danny Spungen, and a philanthropist, a manufacturer, a business owner, a foundation director, whatever. And we are so pleased and honored because his local business is here in Waukegan, not too far from us here in Highland Park. And we'd like to hear from you. And can I shake your hand? Are your hands warm
welcome,
too?
sure.
Oh yeah, your hands are okay. My hands are freezing, still freezing from outside. Don't like winter. Anyway, so tell us, what do you bring to the program this evening?
Well, first of all, why am I here?
Okay.
Is because I'm in a Rotary Club. I used to be Lincolnshire Rotary. Now I'm with the North Chicago Rotary Club.
Okay.
It's closer to our Waukegan factory and our business. And in our club there are Dr. John Baer and one of his, I would guess one of his outpatients, you might call it,
Okay.
Angela Walker.
Angela.
And she is a wonderful lady who has got a great voice.
Oh.
And I fell in love with her when I heard her sing.
Absolutely.
So I had her come to our company holiday party, a winter holiday party, and she sang holiday songs. And I got very involved with the North Chicago Rotary, and they have that program at the University of Chicago. It's at Dr. John Baer's facility.
That's right.
What's that called? Do you know the name of that? It's
Not offhand.
every Friday, veterans get together.
Yes,
they have
yes.
PTSD,
yes, yeah.
and they read poetry and they sing songs.
Yes.
And they actually had some Holocaust survivors that were part of that group. As a matter of fact, just a few years ago, the last Holocaust survivor passed away that was going to his group every single Friday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I got very involved in Rotary because I wanted to get involved with my community. And over the years, my family hosts 11 foreign exchange students. So Rotary has a program where you bring in a foreign exchange student for one full high school year. Our 11 students went to Stevenson High School.
Oh, okay.
And it got my two natural kids very involved in thinking and seeing the world beyond their bubble in the North Shore.
Yeah.
And it really sparked an interest and planted a seed for what led to where I am right now today. So our family, we had a third generation ball bearing and chain company, industrial ball bearings and chain. And in 2008, our company was sold to a big company, the largest company in Sweden. And our family contemplated, you know, what are we going to do next? Well, the first thing we did was, we cannot forget about our employees right here in the North Shore, Chicago area, southern Wisconsin. And you can do an internet search, Danny Spungen Bonus or Danny Spungen Bearing Bonus, and you will come up with many stories that included Good Morning America, CNBC, CNN, all the major networks, CBS Friday, the 6 o'clock news, the prime show, where we gave our 200 plus employees about $6.6 million to split up. At the time, it was unique because the economy was in shaky grounds then, and the economy actually collapsed around Thanksgiving 2008, and they needed a good story. And they found us. They found out that we made this major contribution to our employees who really deserved it. We are the Spungen family. We were just the cheerleaders. They were the ones that sacrificed so much energy and passion to make a company successful. So then what? So what does someone do when they sell a company? I had a great board of advisors, and I started reflecting, well, gee, maybe I'll go back to my passion of maybe going to the stamp and coin collecting business. I used to be the buyer at Marshall Fields. Remember Marshall Fields, of course?
I do indeed. I used to work there.
I was the one in Skokie.
The one in Skokie, sure.
I was on the third floor next to the book department.
I was on the third floor in the boys department.
We were neighbors.
Oh.
So do you remember next to the elevators, they had the stamp and coin department right next to the bookstore?
It's 100 years
book
ago.
Department. I was there from 76, 77 to about 1983.
I was before that. Because we lived in Niles, we weren't out here yet, so it was before that.
Before that.
Yeah.
Well, they had the stamp and coin department. Stamps used to be a very, very big hobby. And now kids today, they don't really play with stamps, and people don't keep coins in their pocket now. It's all electronic and credit cards. In any case, back in 2007, when our company was in play to be sold, I went to a stamp show in Pennsylvania. And I found this man at a table with a piece of Jewish scripture, a piece of Torah, ripped in half, with a Hitler stamp on it, dressed by a German soldier who, on the Russian front, wrote a letter and wrote the address on the scripture to his wife in Vienna, Austria. They had to pay postage due, even though it was felt post, free post. And it was a letter. It was used as a letter, an envelope through the mail system. It ended up being a very powerful, positive experience of a World War II collection. I told this man, what are you going to do with it? Well, he worked for the Southern Poverty Center. His name was Ken Lawrence. And he built this over 30 years, this collection. I said, give it to me. I'll do something with it. So I purchased it. And the first thing I did was actually donate it to our foundation. My mother started a foundation. And I said, I want to keep it on my kids' hands because they're going to sell it.
Oh, yeah.
So when my mother created this foundation, when the company was sold, right around that time period, she had cancer. She wanted us to put our money into cancer, genetics, caregiving issues. And I said, wait a minute, the Holocaust was, in a sense, it's a cancer. Oh. So I said, let's use this exhibit, this collection, and in a positive way, and bring it around to schools all over the world. It's been translated to Chinese, Greek, of course English, a little bit Italian, Spanish. So that's something that was pretty powerful. Now going back to North Chicago Rotary in Waukegan, where our business is, when I met Angela and John Baer, and you think about PTSD, there is a link. PTSD is a fairly new word, new concept since
Yeah, I think so.
maybe the Afghanistan War, the Iraq War, somewhere around the Vietnam, or right in that area. But it never existed, that terminology in World War II for Holocaust survivors.
They called it something.
Something.
I can't remember offhand what they call that, but General Patton was saying that those are suffering from this,
Definitely a trauma of some nature.
trauma. Yeah.
But the whole industry of PTSD is fairly new and significant.
Yeah.
There was no counseling, there's no therapy for Holocaust survivors or for those victims of the Rwanda genocide, even in 1994.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I think in your previous segment you mentioned that it is true that when the survivors of these traumas, they didn't speak.
No, they weren't.
But it was General Eisenhower who liberated the camps of Dachau, the German concentration camps. He said to his soldiers, "You must take pictures.
So don't forget.
We cannot forget it, and you must tell the world what happened." But the liberators and the survivors that came back, they didn't speak. They didn't speak for several reasons. One reason was they didn't want to speak about it. People didn't want to. They want to live the American dream. They want to get on with their lives, and they buried this cancer. They buried this trauma, and it really kind of like, I would say, exploded in 1993 when Schindler's List came out.
Wow.
Maybe in 1978 there's a documentary with Meryl Streep called World War II, the Holocaust. And that's when the Jewish people and the survivors and liberators say, wait, we got to start speaking to our own families, our own friends, and start speaking. So it kind of is like a full circle of how PTSD in the veterans, like the great veteran you had on earlier this segment, and those like Angela Walker. Boy, there's so much trauma and there's so much stress involved.
When the body and the mind are not used to such horrors and tragedies, it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know which way to go. So the easiest way is try to swallow it, forget it, put it in the back of your mind, and
it doesn't work.
And try to live another day. Live another day.
As the president of our Holocaust Museum says, you can have a great day, but you don't control your dreams.
No,
they come back.
Live with it, yeah.
They come back, and they come back, and finally you have to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And today we have those mechanisms. We have great facilities, and we have great people trying to deal with helping people with PTSD or any kind of trauma. So that's one reason why I wanted to join North Chicago, to give back to the community. Because once you sell a company, once you have the money, what do you do? I could have bought a boat, a couple cars, horses. I decided to take this collection and give back to the community and tie everything up, because there were so many great people involved in my life that did so much to help me. Everybody has issues. Everybody's DNA has issues they have to deal with.
Sure.
And just today in the last week I had 6 students, high school seniors from Billings West High School, Montana. They want to take a week, a survivor's week, to come to Chicago, go to the Illinois Holocaust Museum, go to the Indiana Candles Holocaust Museum, meet survivors of the Holocaust, meet refugees from the Syria crisis. As a matter of fact, the students yesterday, they were on WGN News last night. They happened to be at the press conference.
Oh my.
So it's nice to do a lot of good things when you have the money, to put it back in the community, give it back to the employees, give it back to people like Angela in the Rotary. There's a lot of need. And there's a lot of good things happening too.
Well, you belong to the North Chicago
Rotary
with Waddell Brooks, famous Waddell. We know Waddell 100 years, and Daisy, and I was a Highland Park Rotary. Good Morning Rotary, Highland Park.
You were?
Yes, absolutely,
beautiful.
for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
But the group is older. Everybody is older. They either pass away or they just don't feel they can make it. And so my group kind of dissolved.
Getting young people involved in organizations
is very difficult.
Very tough.
And the afternoon group that was so humongous is now down to 8 or 10 people. And they were an enormous group. The morning group, we were 15 at the most. And an elderly group, I think I was among the youngest, and it used to meet at 7:30 in the morning at the country club. Mm-hmm. And then after the people were passing away and moving on, they just didn't want to continue. I said, you know, I'll help continue, whatever, but they just didn't want to, they just felt that they didn't have the want anymore. But I remember when we went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, where my mother is from, and Rotary went, and I said, boy, that trip I've got to take. There's family I don't even know. My mother, you know, I think she was back one time, but my mother was dark complected, dark eyes, dark complexion. I'm one of 3. I have had 2 older brothers, and then I was the 3rd child. My father was light, blue eyes, blonde hair. And so my older brother resembled my mother, and my middle brother was a mix between my father and myself. And so Rotary offered that, and Jack Blaine, I must say, who just passed away.
Just passed away, correct.
He was wonderful because when I was taking pictures of the iron lung, because he helped with the polio, mm-hmm. You know, the vaccine, and help all these countries and inoculate their children and everything. Wonderful, wonderful things that Rotary does. And it sounds like you are on the same track as trying to help other people.
Oh, actually, I should backtrack. Actually, it's our company, Peer Chain Company.
Oh.
They're actually the member.
Okay.
So you're right, trying to get more people involved,
yes.
especially the younger employees. It's working to some degree. We have several members of our company who go to lunch. We meet on Tuesdays in North Chicago. So our company is the official member. I go every week, and I have our marketing, our creative and marketing director. He goes every week. So we do have a lot of interaction. It's getting better. One thing we do that's interesting in our company, in trying to get the community involved in this one company. So we sold our bearing company. We kept the chain company. So we used to have 1,600 employees,
wow.
Of which, by the way, we had a factory in Argentina, in Cordoba. I don't know if you know, near Villa Maria. And we had a factory of about a couple hundred people. But in Chicago area, in Waukegan, we had about more than 200. Now we have about 66 employees. And every 90 days or so, we bring in a lunch and learn. Everybody's struggling during the day to get their orders out, talking to customers, dealing with problems. What we like to do is we bring in just anybody. So we brought in one handwriting analysis expert, a man.
That's interesting.
And we brought in a lady who calls herself the egg lady. She knows everything about eggs, the whole egg industry. We bring in, we brought in Dr. John Baer and his students. We bring in Holocaust survivors. We bring in Rwanda survivors. We bring in, we try not to bring in politicians, but we did bring in the Lake County Commissioner, who's bipartisan. Their job is to let you know that they do passports in Waukegan, and their driver's license services, or whatever kind of needs you have. So that was kind of fun. But we try to get our employees engaged in the community. Recently, we had a safe place. Are you familiar with a safe place?
Yes, for the women.
And one of our employees' daughters was victimized in a terrible situation, and her perpetrator is now in jail, and she's now working at a safe place.
Okay.
So it's really nice, and we get involved in the 5K walks. So it's really nice to see that you can be a capitalist with a heart. That's what sometimes I tell people. I'm a capitalist with a heart. Is it?
Oh my God. Okay, okay.
And they're out there, and we're getting bigger and stronger, and you're hearing more news about how money is being given away for charity. Warren Buffett and the Gates, and you know, many people with money. I don't have that much money, but it doesn't really matter how much. You got to give something, and it could be time, it could be your a passion, you know, doing work like painting for veterans. It's there to be had. But we're all so busy. We're all so busy.
But
in these
you know,
clubs,
you have
it's
to
really
reach out to the community. They don't know you exist. I didn't know you exist if it wasn't for Angela. And Angela's my go-to person for the veterans, because I had Angela on the program, and she said one time, because my husband and I and my son David are members. I'm a member of the Women's Auxiliary from 145 for the American Legion up here, and our group is getting older. I have to tell you, they're in their 80s and 90s.
Yes.
They can barely walk. But people don't know that that group exists. We're American Legion. These are guys that are fighter pilots that were shot down. These are, you know, from whatever era you could imagine. They're there. We have to pull in new sons of these families just to give it life.
Well, one issue is that people are working harder because maybe jobs got fewer after 2009. They're taking more responsibility. There's no more time for longer lunches. A lot of service organizations meet at lunch, and after work, you have to take your kids. There's so much pressure and stress on you. Your kids. They have to go to soccer, to volleyball, and they have to go to hockey. And ice time is restrictive, and you're controlled by the bus companies because the bus companies have to take the students at different times of the day. It's harder to find time, but you can, and we cannot. We have to find the reason to ignore those excuses.
Do you? So. Would it be safe to say you never served in the armed forces? You were never.
I never dealt with veterans. I never really met veterans. We hired them, but we never talked about it in our company.
We hired veterans. So we did that. We used to have a sign in the window that said we hire veterans, and we did. Many with PTSD, but excellent workers. And if they needed time off or whatever, we always gave them time off. And people that came to us looking for a job, they would ride a bicycle. Our business was in Skokie at the time, but they would ride a bicycle. My husband and I said, you know, that gentleman needs a job badly, that he drove in on a bicycle from Chicago just to get a job.
It's funny, I'm sure we have veterans. I know my plant manager is a veteran. You know, we don't even have time to talk socially with one another, even at work. That's why I bring in these lunch and learns. We bring in lunch. We pay everybody at lunch. No potato chips because we don't want the crunching. And we have the.
Is that a joke or is that
That's
for real?
true. It got crazy. You buy these packaged lunches and people are tearing open the bags and crunching on potato chips. I said we can't do that. My brother and I said no more chips. But it's nice to bring in someone every 90 days to the company, just on a variety of topics, just to get everybody together. And people like Angela again, it's nice. And then get them to know that there are organizations like Rotary, Lions Club, service organizations, veterans groups. It's important to get involved. And I think I am a little bit unusual. I think it's easy to give money.
That, but
well, I think it's easy. We're a little bit unusual because we need more people at management level to join these service organizations and get involved.
I think it's called communications. You need to communicate from one to the other what your point is, what you'd like to get across, and make them comfortable for what they are, because there are levels. You know, there's employees and employers, and middle management doesn't want to deal with, you know, that because they're beneath them. So, you know, you want to create a happy medium, and
you try.
I think a good idea is, I mean, I'm not on the, I don't have the power to do any inviting, but I would like to talk to our commander at the American Legion and have you come in and talk, because I think you have a lot to offer our veterans that are there, and if we could, you know, do something, because we offer scholarships, we offer many things for the young people. and you get to learn. I didn't know my grandparents. I only had one grandparent, but these older senior citizens make you feel very comfortable, and they fought for our country and fought for the rights of others in Europe who were unable to fight on their own. And I hold them as heroes. They're wonderful.
Of course.
And their wives, the fear that they lived through. I know I was terrified when my sons were overseas, not hearing from them. A letter, my son would, call on the phone. Here, I'm here. I can only spend 30 seconds on the phone. There's 500 guys behind me. I can't talk. I just want you to know I'm well and okay. I love you. Bye, Mom.
Have you ever heard of the Big Red One?
No.
So I did not even know this, but the Big Red One Army, that's a big deal in America. It was a major part of the Army. And my uncle was part of that. He was in Germany the winter of 1944 on the Siegfried Line. And
it's cold.
I never got involved in the study and the collecting and the exhibiting of World War II material until after he passed away. I have photographs. My Uncle Oscar was on the Siegfried Line for the first Jewish service on German soil in the winter 1944. Cool. Front page of the newspapers, and I have all that stuff. I have his badge. I have his, and he never spoke.
See?
Because maybe I never asked him. So part of it is, and it's going back to this PTSD. We only met just recently, but we talked about a lot of things. I can tell you why. Yeah. I'm definitely a naturally born, never been drugged, ADD or ADHD or whatever it is. That's me. I'm definitely one of those guys. I like it. I don't mind. I don't mind. This is who I am. This is all, we talked about so many things in this short amount of time, but I go back to this PTSD, and I deal with so many Holocaust survivors, and many just don't talk. No. Of course, I'm dealing with those who do talk, but I know many who will not talk. Yeah. I have one lady. She's beautiful. Her name is Hilda, and she says, "Oh, I don't speak, but my friend Magda, she speaks for me. My friend Agnes, she speaks for me." And when I bring in students from all over the world, and I take students to our foundation, we give them scholarships to go to Auschwitz every single summer. And they come to our home, and they meet these people. I should really have them meet Dr. John Baer and Angela at the same time.
You hear that music.
That means we're almost over.
That means we are over. But we need to get back. I would like to offer you the same as I offered Rick. Please do come back for part 2. And we'll give you a whole hour. We're going to give Rick a whole hour. And,
if I can bring some material,
absolutely,
you can make the Holocaust a positive message. Even if you got to take the horrors of never forget, but you got to remember.
Well, I'd like to just, what camera do I look at? I guess we just, oh, there we go. Okay. I want to thank you for allowing us in your home or your place of business. If you've learned anything from this program, I hope that it was of service to you. See you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. Please do let us hear from you, and you can see us on our YouTube. Please train in. I invite you to do so. And see you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. Thank you, and do have a good evening.